Erica does that to me.
Yeah.
And it's not, and with Erica, it's never like me saying, "Just give me 2 minutes and I'll explain this."
Yeah.
I'll say something. She'll say, "What are you talking about?" Usually, it's a reference to some movie or something, and she'll say, "What are you talking about?" And I'll say, and before I can get the next word out, she goes, "You have 5 sentences to explain this to me, and I'm out." That's
it. Smart girl.
Or you got 1 minute because I actually don't care. And then she'll use this like my own lines on me. She'll be like, "I'm sorry, this is my fault. I know it made it seem like I wanted to know, but I don't want to know."
Yeah.
I did that to one of my favorite students in class just the other day, and I wouldn't have done it to a student I didn't like, but I like this student, and they're a lot of fun. But they talk a lot, and they said something, and I asked them a question, and they started answering it, and then about 30 seconds in, I'm like, "Listen, this is on me." She's like, "What, Miss Ruff?" I'm like, "It's my fault. I realize I asked you this question, and I realize I made it seem like I cared about the answer. But to be honest, I was being polite, and I'm out."
Yeah. That's one of life's better insulting apologies.
Yeah, right.
You really get a head full of steam on how sorry you are and how much it's your fault to then tell someone you get it. That's fucking bore.
It's my favorite. I do it to my dad all the time. It is my absolute favorite thing to do to him.
I'm a bad person. I am a very bad person. I don't like myself anymore. But
so this is on me. Listen, it's my fault. I realize that I gave you the impression that I wanted to hear this story, and that's on me. That's my fault. But we don't need to continue on with this anymore because I've stopped listening.
Hi, Erica one.
Hey, Erica. There's Erica one.
Hi, everyone. Hi,
OG
hi
Erica.
those who are returning, and those are the Sprouted Sunshine. I like very much.
Ooh,
Sprouted Sunshine.
That was my nickname in college.
You know what I miss? I miss the YouTube trolls. I think I banned them all. And they were
whoa! Do not say you miss them. No.
They were like, "We're here, Bob. We're here."
Why would you do that?
No.
Why would you do that?
No.
I'm just kidding. I don't miss them because usually when they were there, what happened was Janet's asking me a question, and the entire time you're asking the question, I'm reading the chat.
I'm like, why is his face getting more and more red?
Yeah.
And his jaw is going tighter and tighter.
Mm-hmm.
I really like when he didn't have his glasses and he just did this.
Right.
It was just
slowly.
I'm in that boat right now.
I'm
in the same boat. You get sometimes,
Janet. Glasses. Yeah.
They're on, but it was hurting my ear. The headphones were pressing it into my ear.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll switch to these. I have a whole collection here. How about?
I'm excited because I just swapped out. I just got replacement pads for this stuff, but it's like when you replace them, it's real tight for a while. So even just my headphones seem very tight.
What kind of headphones do you have that they make replacement pads for them?
The Sennheiser 280 Pro.
Okay, rich girl. All right.
I don't know if they're expensive. I don't know that they're expensive.
Our headphones are disposable. We stole these from an airplane. When we got on, they came in a little Ziploc baggie to plug into.
Shut up. Is that true? That would be amazing. And it's like it's the same connection issues as when you're trying to watch something on airport TV. It's like I told son died day.
Right.
That's what you hear. Great. Smart.
Oh, I am going to need to.
We're never getting started.
Are you feeling anything from your muscle relaxant? Everybody.
No, I mean I feel pretty fucking chill.
I think you would feel you will not. I think you're not going to feel. I feel like if you took them over an hour ago, you're feeling like how you're going to feel. I don't think you're going to start feeling any more of anything.
Yeah, well, it said that I could take 1 or 2 as needed, and I was terrified, so I took 1.
And that was very, very smart.
But I'm
very smart move. I can't even take 1. I have to take 1/4 if I'm going to try to be awake.
This is going to be the test because I'm going to get up and go take care of a quick little plumbing issue, and that's when it's real bad. When I've been sitting down and I stand up, and it's like it's my lower back, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, when we went to brunch on Sunday, and like we're sitting there for an hour just shooting the shit, having brunch, and then stood up and was like, and then I was doing like the hunched over, walking, shuffling my feet thing. Yeah. That's how it's been for me.
You should have seen how awesome.
I take to. I wake up in the middle of the night eating. Oh no, it's like
that sounds like fun. I love it. Yeah,
I do that too.
I just
do that anyways.
Okay.
We did this awesome thing where we went and had brunch with the Ruffs, and we were all trying to be fancy, and we're like, "This place is really nice. We should get reservations." So we totally got reservations for like right when we open or right when they open, and we show up, and they're like, "We have reservations." They're like, okay, pick a table. The whole fucking restaurant's empty. They're like,
I've totally done
did
that.
you really call for
I've
reservations?
totally done that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, this whole restaurant is open. Pick whatever
Well, that's
table you want.
also, yeah. Which, by the way, I also feel like it works the reverse too, where you go, and I understand that you need to mark off if someone had a reservation, but like, you
Yeah.
know, you go to a restaurant that's utterly empty and they're like, did you have a reservation?
Yeah. Yeah. Really?
I mean, if you did, they want to make sure that they've marked you off, that they're, but like, yeah, you're like, I didn't. Is that a
Yeah.
problem?
Are we
Are you gonna
expecting a
be able
rush?
to? Wow.
Is there a rush coming?
I mean, you wake up with food in your mouth. That is fascinating. I've never had that experience where like I wake up in the middle of doing a thing that I clearly must have been doing asleep.
No, I've never
That
done
kind
that
of
either.
trips me out. Yeah.
I mean, I definitely will
I
eat
hope
in the
it's
middle of
stuff
the
you
night, but I
like.
know
I
that
hope
I'm
you're
doing
not
it.
like, I woke up with food, aka cat litter in my mouth.
I do the thing where I'm like, I need a glass of water, and then I'll go get a glass of water. Then I'm like, I need some chips as well.
Uh-huh. We got to keep that water in a different area. It's
Yeah.
got to be not in the kitchen.
Not in the kitchen by the
Yeah.
pantry.
Yeah.
Not good.
Mm-mm-mm.
We did have some bomb ass chicken and waffles though, like
Ooh,
like
love
high
some
end
chicken and waffles.
Nashville hot chicken and waffles.
Yes,
So good.
indeed.
So fucking
I bet that was tasty as
so
heck.
good. And that
Yeah.
place is so ridiculously over the top.
Is it expensive?
Not.
It's not. I mean, it's not cheap, but it wasn't that bad.
Is it in what is it in? What's
It's
it called?
in Michigan City, so it's like just
okay.
south of us.
It's not like that area that the police bother to patrol.
No, it's in
when
a
they don't
totally. It's in
patrol.
Indiana, actually.
It's not.
Oh, okay.
It's not dissimilar though.
No, it's actually it's not
a
dissimilar.
lot of Michigan City is pretty rough, but that's like it's almost like an arts district.
Mhm.
There's this little section where there's like some fancy breweries and restaurants and sushi joints
Yeah.
that are kind of in a little
Mhm.
area.
It's cute when a state names a city its neighboring state.
Yeah, Michigan City.
Yeah, just to confuse
Arizona
the fuck out of
City.
everybody. And they're in a different time
100%.
zone.
Yeah, they're directly south of us and a different time zone.
Yeah,
Yep.
that'll
So
mess with
that's
you.
fun.
So the update, the muscle relaxers have made me feel a little loopy.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you peed on yourself.
My back still hurts. Did not seem to fix that. So I'm thinking since it said I could take 1 to 2, I've taken one. I feel like when I'm done recording, I can take a second one and then get that little overlap right when I'm going to bed.
Oh, okay. All right.
Right? I mean, it helps you sleep, right?
Yeah, for sure. I'm just wondering if you're going to take it too early, and then you'll just fall asleep, like when you're trying to still be awake. But
oh yeah, then I'll be a little. Actually, if I fall asleep during this horrible debate that
you're
I'm going to
doing
be watching
yourself a
tonight,
favor. Yeah.
probably it won't be that
There
bad.
you
It's occurring to me right now that maybe I should have physically went to the doctor instead of just doing the online thing with my doctor because I have questions now.
Oh no. No.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah. I mean, I thought how super handy that is that through my insurance we can get online to the doctor and be like, my lower back hurts. It's killing me. Should I come in? And they're like, why don't we try that? I'll send you a prescription. Here's the
Yeah.
And didn't have to physically go see anybody.
We had a doctor that we used to do that with before the internet, and then he lost his license. So
no shit.
Okay.
No shit.
you know which one I'm talking about. The one in Bridgman.
Mhm.
You know exactly which one I'm talking about.
Oh no.
You just go, you're
Honestly,
like,
yeah.
Well, I wonder
I don't think they would have done anything other if it was unless it was like an orthopedist or like I mean, I'm not a chiropractor person, but like a chiropractor, like I don't even know if you just gone to a GP and said your back hurt. I feel like they would have done the same thing. I don't honestly feel like it probably would have helped you to be in person, but
no, I just meant I would have more questions about the med.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
The
back
so
thing,
for some reason, because you could have asked those questions online,
but I've never had them before, and then I wondered too, like, will they send some because muscle relaxer is kind of like, is it a narcotic?
I don't think
Flexeril?
Flexeril is.
Maybe
No, I
not.
think that's like
So that makes sense.
I don't think so.
Because I did think it's like you can send that without having to
Yeah.
see me, but then I think too, like they probably see my history. Like I'm the guy that they're like, would you like Vicodin? I'm like, how about Advil? Like I don't like that shit. I
Same.
never take it.
I got an awesome story about that, doctor.
Huh?
When I had to get my tattoo license in Indiana, you have to prove that you're free of communicable diseases, right? But it also says there's no blood test required, which makes no fucking sense anyways. But I went to the doctor and I was like, I have to have a note that says I'm free of any communicable diseases, but also I don't need a blood test. And he goes, you got anything? No. He goes, okay.
Oh no.
That's like our COVID test in Mexico.
That's what I was gonna say. That's literally what I was opening. Yeah.
You got anything?
Yeah.
No.
Huh.
Okay.
Oh, all right. We're gonna start this thing because I do want to. Actually, really, now I want to make sure we're done by 8:45.
This is
Okay.
we're done.
Mostly not because I don't actually want to watch this thing, but that final little touch I was getting ready to put into
Oh yeah.
this week's episode.
It's driving you nuts.
It's driving me crazy. Like literally, I was doing the music, and there's another little effect that I wanted, and it was like, it's 7:00. I just got one last fuck, and so I gave it. But now it's killing me that it's that last little thing, even though I don't need to have it done until Sunday, and it's Tuesday.
Okay.
Truthfully, I'm surprised he stopped doing what he was doing. To be 100% honest,
I almost did. The only reason I didn't was because I knew we were going to be a little shorter than normal. Because you had said you're going to be late. I'm like, perfect. I'll just do this for 5 more minutes, and then we'll just be late. But then I was like, that's not fair to the pre-gamers. Got to get on there. Got to get on there when we tell you we're going to be on there.
But also, you know how Bob is. 5 minutes turns into 30 real quick.
Yeah.
Because I'm a bit of a perfectionist with most everything, and it makes me go insane.
Here's the grass.
Most of the
Snip, snip, snip,
Mm-hmm.
snip.
So with that, we're going to end the pregame show right now. We love you, pre-gamers, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Thank you, pre-gamers.
No.
That is correct. That is correct.
All right.
I look like I drank a jar of spaghetti sauce. How?
What?
What did you do that for?
Was it the face I was making? What's the face of drinking I don't think I have.
Wait, is there a troll here? What does that mean?
Brad Sunshine says, JV, it looks like you just drank a jar of spaghetti sauce. But I didn't know if maybe I was making a face. But then I'm curious, like, ooh, what's the face of someone who just drank a jar of spaghetti sauce?
Sprouted, you done ruined Janet's day. She's never going to stop thinking about that comment.
Fascinating.
It's the weirdest comment. It was killing me. Is it like fucking answer? Like, what do you mean?
We're going to get an answer. There's a delay. Don't forget about the delay.
Oh, yeah.
It's a little bit of a delay.
Any
second now,
I'm popping over to
Sprout is gonna
YouTube
come
to
through for
see.
me.
Yep, there's the delay right there.
Regardless of whatever.
Oh, my cup. Yeah, it's got a little Sketchfest cozy. I feel always like I shouldn't say koozie. Like there's something wrong with that. But
you're drinking out of your coos.
Well, there's those muscle relaxers.
Yeah, I was gonna say that like regardless of what he says, I think they've kicked in more than he's wanting to acknowledge.
I'm fine.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm fine.
Oh God.
Great.
That's one that we need to clip.
Janet, I have really enjoyed being on this podcast together with you.
I know. We had a good run, kind of.
Feeling this
right,
is
buddy?
it. Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like this might be it.
Okay, here I really hit. I need it. So the delay. I've got YouTube over there, so I can see if she answered in the chat.
Great. Okay.
Now I see the delay and it's fucking me up. Hang on. Stand by.
Yeah.
Stand by. Let me get that off of there. Calm down, Zach. We're gonna hit record. Ready?
Oh, yes. Recording.
Watch me get serious as shit.
Boy.
1, 2, 3.
Ahoy, friends. Thank you for tuning in to Truth and Justice. You are listening to the Friday follow-up for Season 15, Episode 11, The Jailhouse Snitch. This week, Bob discussed a series of kites that Jody sent out while in jail. We also learned about I almost said Trevor. We almost lost... Goodness.
You're good.
We also learned about Terrence Hunter, who was the jailhouse informant who testified that Jody confessed to him. We have a lot to discuss this week, and Bob, Janet, and I are here to talk about it all. So let's jump right in.
All right. I don't think we have anything particularly pressing for housekeeping to do this week. I do want to tell you that Sunday's episode is, as I told, the way I described it to Erica was, this is a banger. This one is, I'm really excited for you to hear it. And we're already like jamming ahead on the next one. So it all kind of things start to connect from the episode you just heard to the one you're about to hear to the one that's coming next week. And it's for me, as like I've told you guys before, like recording the podcast is my least favorite part of my job. What I really like doing is the investigation, and it was just pulling on these strings and trying to take all this chaos and make something that makes sense out of it. And I feel like that's breaking in my mind right now as I'm doing it. So as we started to pull on the string with Terrence Hunter and some other witnesses, stuff you're going to hear about on Sunday. As a matter of fact, poor Erica had spent the better part of a week prepping next week's episode. And then I text her when I finished writing this one and told her to throw out the rundown because this leads into something else. Like we discovered something in the investigation that's coming out on Sunday that leads us to another piece that we're going to do the next week. So just want you to know things are about to get pretty serious in the next couple of weeks. Make sure you tune in on Sunday. I'm really happy with the episode. I'm really happy with the information that's coming out. So make sure you tune into that. But now we're here to talk about this week's episode. And now, just so you know, a number of things you need to know. One, I threw my back out and I'm on muscle relaxers. So you need to know that. Two, I've this week in the last 3 days have worked on 3 different episodes. So I may get a little bit confused about that. We just finished putting music on this week's episode. We had already started writing next week's episode. They got bumped to the following week and started writing a new one. So I'm going to try to keep all those facts straight. So I'm going to rely on you two to keep me in check because you only know what this episode's about. And I don't know how many things I said there was going to be, but that's all of them.
I would say number 3 is C number 1.
Right. There you go. All of a sudden, I'm feeling a little dizzy, but I'm fine.
Right.
I'm fine. Back's feeling better. Let's get into this episode about this. Hang on.
Here's how I know that you are on feeling the fact that you're on muscle relaxants is that regular Bob would never feel the need to announce that he was on muscle relaxants.
Yeah.
So there's the proof right there.
Well, the thing is, something just kind of hit me in those last 30 seconds. I'm like, uh-oh. So I feel like I need to lay that out for all of you listening, that everything's going to be fine. Everything will be fine. So
Fantastic.
Erica, thank you so much. Thank you so much
Erica,
for what
thank
you're
you,
about to do.
yeah, she's going to leave it all in. It's fine.
She's going to earn her keep this week.
Listen, 8:04 p.m. Flex roll. Bob says it's fine. So we'll see how I feel about it in the morning.
Erica, please
Different.
take all
You're
this
going to feel
out.
different.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into the episode now. So this one was on the kites and the jailhouse snitch. And it's one of those episodes for me where it seemed like there was a whole lot of different things. Remember, Erica said too, when she was starting to like research it and dig into all the different kites, she was just like, this is just confusing. There's just so much stuff going on. She did a great job of kind of getting things organized into a linear fashion for me. And then once we started writing, that's when everything started to make sense and we started to piece things together. So first things first, Zach, what'd you think?
So truthfully, the whole thing with the kites was oddly damning to me. Like, I still don't believe Jody has anything to do with this, but the fact that Jody wrote all of these letters and they all come back to Jody was just very strange to me. I get what he was going for. I get what they were going for. And I get that at one point they even say like, this backfired on me.
Yeah.
But it was strangely damning to me. I still don't believe that Jody committed this crime, but just hearing this on its own, it was just very strange to me.
So break that down for what about it made you feel like it was kind of damning for Jody?
Well, the whole idea that they are trying to circumvent and put out information or try to help the investigation as they said they were doing, but they're using all these aliases and they're doing all these things to try to pretend that they are not who they are.
Sure.
Which makes me feel like they're trying to distract from themselves to show that they didn't do it, which is exactly what they were trying to do. But it also feels like something a guilty person would do as well.
Right. And that's the thing is, and that's obviously the jury kind of felt that way too. So that, and that's why you're here. Cause I want to know like what other people just listening to it, how you feel about it. But like I had said in there, it's like whether Jody is innocent or guilty, either way, it seems very clear that the intent was to get them to look at somebody else. And I think there's Jody kind of laid out 2 different options there, but I think there's 3, right? So I think there is, I don't want them looking at me because I'm guilty and I want them looking away, right? That's one way to look at it. I don't want them looking at me because I've heard and I think these other people did it, which is what Jody kind of presented was their purpose for it. And then there's, I don't want them looking at me, and so I'm just going to throw whatever against the wall I can just to get them looking the other direction, even if they're innocent. Yeah, because I think either of those responses would be, I don't say natural, but they would be understandable responses. If you're being investigated for a murder, you're desperate, you're trying to get them to look away. What did you think, Janet?
Well, yeah, I was gonna respond to that because to me, it's just another symptom of how bananas this all is. And it almost reminds me of like, those really stressful movies that I always somehow get sucked into. And then while I'm watching them, I think, oh, wait, I don't like these movies because they make me so tense. I'm not
Yeah.
enjoying myself. And it's often these movies where the whole world is against one person, or the person is sane and we know they're sane, but every action they take in the reality of the movie is just causing people to go, oh, well, that's what a crazy person would say. That's why you're stuck in the psychiatric unit. And then the
Right.
person's like, no, but blah. And they're like, aha, a crazy person will also say that. And you just get so wound up that you're like, there's no way out. Like, there's
Mhm.
nothing you can
Mhm.
do. You feel like you're in a fun house. And so when you're in that environment where you feel like you have a personal reason to believe that like there's more than meets the eye to why you are being accused of this crime, and you're in a place where you have zero credibility and you've been, you're stuck inside jail. I feel like, again, it's symptomatic of like all bets are off. Like, what do you even do? They're
Right.
not going to listen to you, and so I can totally see a situation in which, and I'm not saying I agree with you, Zach, it's not a great look. And it's kind of like, what is a great look anymore?
Mhm.
Because it wouldn't matter. It's that thing where no matter what you do, someone's like, classic, you say you're innocent. Of course you do. Everyone says they're innocent. Classic, you say you did it, but you learned. That's just you trying to get out of this. You have a good reason. Like everything you say. So at some point, if you're Jody, you might just say, I just gotta do whatever I can. Honestly, it doesn't matter. We'll just see what sticks. Let's just see if there's anything I can do to help myself in this situation.
Yeah. To me, it's one of those situations where, the way I try to look at things, and I try to get other people to look at them too, is try to look through different perspectives. So look through the lens of Jody is absolutely innocent. Does what Jody was doing make sense?
Mhm.
In my opinion, yes, absolutely.
Right.
But then also look through the lens of Jody's absolutely guilty. Does what Jody did make sense? I think
Absolutely.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So in either circumstance, I think like it's understandable why they would do this in either situation.
Right.
But to me, the thing that was the most telling were the details about the murder that Jody was writing into those letters. That was the part that jumped out at me when Jody wrote the letters saying, put a fake name on it, telling the police that there was these three guys and the three shooters and the two different guns and all the different things that they were putting into it. To me, that's very like, that wasn't their intention. They didn't think they were going to get caught as the person that wrote the letters.
Mhm.
So what would their intention be to write a letter with details in it that they know is not what, like, whoever killed Mario knows that's not the evidence they're going to find at the crime scene because they were there. They know that. So that was the part to me that jumped out, that actually in all of this, because of those two perspectives, right? Does it affect credibility? Sure. But when it comes to the actual evidence from the crime, I think that part made it Jody look much more innocent to me. We also have, in my opinion, we have the advantage of knowing that Jody is clearly alibied from this, and they didn't do it. But even beyond that, if I see someone who they're accusing of this murder trying to misdirect the police, but their details about the murder are all wrong,
Mhm.
that's why we're looking at, when we're doing interviews and we're testing the veracity of confessions and things like that, we're trying to see, are they giving us guilty knowledge? Are they saying something that only the killer would know? In this case, they were saying things that were completely inaccurate to the crime scene. And to me, that lends much more towards innocent.
Yeah, that makes sense. There was also something that, after I listened to the episode, I texted you and
Mhm.
said, there's this thing that passes by in the episode in Jody's testimony, or in Jody's interview, and oh no, testimony. And I was like, oh, I just like chomped down on that and thought, oh, is Bob going to say something about this? Is he going to say something about this? And you replied to me and said, let's see how it shakes out in the follow up. And I was kind of scared for a minute because no one had posted anything about it. But then my girl Laura came through for me. So Laura has my question of the week,
All right. Well,
the question I would have asked.
let's hear it.
Okay, let's start with that. So Laura says, in Jody's testimony, they mention Doris set the fire to get rid of the evidence, and you can see the burnt plastic in the pic the prosecutor has. Do you know more about that?
Yeah, so one of our listeners who's been doing a lot of research might have been Caroline. I don't remember, or might have been Teresa. I don't remember who exactly it was. Had pointed out a while back to me, at least, or maybe even on Facebook, that it was, I want to say 2 or 3 days after the drive test simulation, the house burned, like the crime scene house, the upstairs apartment. There was a big fire in there. I believe the house ended up being condemned. I think Dora was actually injured in the fire. So we should point out that Jody's statement there that Dora burned the house down to destroy evidence, that's speculation. But what did happen was there was a fire. Dora was injured in the fire in that house. And it was just, the timing was interesting because I think they were looking for, Caroline said it was Valeria that found that.
And I think it was more time had passed because my memory of it is Valeria saying, "Hey, there was a fire like a month or something, or maybe even later." And is that just because I think if it had been that close, everyone would have really perked up and been like, "Hold on." I think it was just enough time had passed that there was a question about whether it was just a coincidence or if it could have been related. But anyway,
Yeah,
good
it's
work,
hard to
Valeria.
say personally based on just what we know about it, even if it was that day or the next day. I still don't think that it's like, I mean, we're talking 6 months after the crime. So I don't
Yeah,
think that this was like destroying evidence. No one was collecting evidence from that apartment at that point. So
right.
I don't think that. I think it was just a coincidence. But it was shortly after the drive test. This fire occurred. Dora was injured. I think she ended up hospitalized because of it, and that's what Jody was talking about. But again, that's one of those. But you look through that section there too, where Jody just unloads. It's right. They're asking them about the kites and things like that, and then all of a sudden it's like, if you pay attention to those pictures, and I'm picturing Jody pointing at the pictures that they probably have up on like easel boards, you can see the burnt plastic in the windows. And then also we're going to get more into it on Sunday, but a big part of that is the part that Jody mentioned about Victoria saying in her 911 call, and that was, again, we don't have the transcript, we don't have the tape, but Jody said that in open court in front of the jury and the attorneys and the judge that had just heard that 911 call. So it seems it's hard to believe that they weren't stating facts. And when I asked Jody about it, they said they don't remember all the details, but what they remember was that the prosecutor or whoever it was, oh no, the dispatcher on the tape asked Victoria, "Who's all there?" And she said, "I don't know. I can't see that well, but there's a whole bunch of people down there," is what she had said on the 911 call. And again, that's one of those things where it's like, what sleight of hand by the prosecution in this? Usually, when I say usually, I mean in every case where I've come across this, in the trial transcript, if they play a 911 tape, which is pretty common, when the person who called 911 is on the stand, they play the tape. That's how they validate it. Is this you on this tape? Yep, that was me. That's what I said. But in this case, when Victoria's on the stand testifying that there's no plastic on the window, she saw this guy in a ponytail, all the things that she's saying, they don't hear a word about the 911 call. After she's off, the next day at trial, when McGinnis is on, then they play it, but they play it for the purpose of, remember, trying to time out how long between her call and when they called McGinnis was. The one where we never got the actual time because they stopped the tape and all that stuff. And we learned then, based on Ernie White's, Jody's attorney's responses to that and questions, it seemed clear, like during the back and forth with the judge, Ernie had never heard that tape before. He said, "I don't know what else is on this tape. I don't know what else they're going to say." He had never heard the tape before. So he didn't have that information when Victoria was on the stand in order to properly cross-examine her, which is just shady as shit, if you ask me. Like he should have heard that tape. And I think that's what you heard in that kind of outburst from Jody, was they finally had a chance to speak, and they just took the opportunity and just started telling you, like, I'm imagining, again, from the perspective of Jody's an innocent person sitting there, sitting at trial, watching all this bullshit. All these things, they're stacking up, trying to build a case against them. Nobody's defending them. Their attorney's doing a terrible job. He's not asking the right questions. He doesn't know who the people are. And Jody finally gets a chance to speak, and he's like, "Hey, jury, pay attention. Did you see those pictures? Did you hear what she said in the 911 tape?" And I think that was really meaningful to me to hear the things that Jody was saying during that cross-examination.
And I also thought, I mean, for what it's worth, we don't have to dwell on this, but I actually thought that Jody represented themselves very well as far as the kites were concerned. Like, I don't know if that was, I imagine it wasn't prep by the defense attorney,
No.
if but I feel like just taking the ownership of that and actually even saying like there were more, honestly, there were more letters than you guys have even read.
Yeah.
I thought that was, I mean, maybe that would be what you would do if you were guilty or innocent, but I just, in my head, I thought that feels like the right move. Almost as if the defense attorney would, like, if it would be a good way to prep a witness to say, now listen, you got to get out in front of these kites. Like, you've got to just own that. You've got to explain yourself, and you know, you got to eat that. And I just felt like that came across to me well. It came across well under the circumstances, you know.
Yeah, I agree. In the beginning of that exchange, especially because you can see situations where a defendant would be like, yep, that's bullshit. I didn't write those. Maybe I touched them, maybe or whatever. But in this case, they're like, these kites, and Jody's like, I wrote all those letters. And they're like,
plus more.
These letters that had your fingerprints on me. He's like, right, I wrote those letters.
I did write them. Yeah.
I wrote those letters, and I wrote more letters. I don't know why they don't have the other letters, but I wrote other letters too.
Yeah.
So in those letters, this is a question I don't think got brought up. And in those letters, I feel like we got a new name that I haven't heard before, which was Terrence Atkins. Do we know anything about that individual, or?
I feel like we covered Terrence at one point, but I think we like read the letter and at that point didn't realize it was Jody that had written the letter.
Okay. I just know that there's so many names being thrown around in this case that I'm trying to stay with it. But that was a name that stuck out to me that I don't remember hearing, that they said they also fled the area with Carvale or about the same time.
Yeah.
Carvale took off.
I'll have to check back into that because it's one of those that I know I've read about. I know Eric has read about. I don't remember if we've talked about it or not. So I'll check into that too, so we can share. Because the thing is, like, there's all these kites, all these letters, like in the file that were written back and forth, and they're all kind of not like they all seem to indicate that it was Carvale with two other people, and you know they're all kind of the same theme coming from different people. Also, when Jody was testifying in that part too, you hear him blurting out, and I need to talk to Jody about this. But Jody was saying that LeBron was giving names, and then he didn't quite know who they were. But one was LeBron Tillman, who we've heard about before. He said Shaddis Wells. He said all these people know who killed Mario. So I found that interesting. So there were people, and that's why Jody to this day, no matter what we go over the DNA of Andrew Wayne Bell, any of that stuff, Jody's like Jody believes that Carvale did it because their only source of information is inside that jail. And people were coming in and out of there off the streets, and that's what everybody was saying. Doesn't mean that's true, but that's Jody has that burned in their mind,
right?
That Carvale was involved in this because that's what they had heard.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Zach, you're not the only one who is feeling a little bit of confusion about trying to keep track of everybody. I know there was actually a post on the Facebook page that wasn't part of the follow-up that was someone saying, like, is there a place where I can go and almost just see a list of the cast of characters, for lack of a better term? Is there a place where I can kind of like help myself keep track? Like, these are the people that we're talking about, and this is like who they are and what their relationship is to Jody or to someone else in the case.
We need a name glossary.
Yeah, a name glossary. I should have just said that. Thank you. Yeah. That's actually very, very well said.
Maybe that's something that during one of our listeners could maybe put together. But it does get confusing too. Like, I don't know if you guys have caught in the last couple of weeks, but there's 3 Terrences.
Yeah.
There's Terrence Adkins.
Yeah.
There's Terrence Hunter.
Right.
And there's Terrence Moore.
Right.
3 different Terrences that are all involved here.
Yeah, that can get a little confusing. And on the subject of documents, Joni had just asked, are more docs going to be posted? And I think maybe just there's a question about where to find stuff. I know that you switched up the way you do things a little bit this season to try to make it easier, but maybe there's still some confusion for where people find those.
Yeah, I need to I haven't put up the docs yet from this episode because I kind of moved right into the next one. And a lot of them are related to, but hopefully by the time you hear this Friday, I'll get some of all the kite stuff and some of Jody's testimony. I mentioned last week that like Jody's testimony, I haven't put out Jody's testimony yet because we've only looked at parts of it, and there's going to be an episode where we're going to cover all of it. But there were some reports and kites I talked about that I didn't get a chance to get published this weekend. But then also some of them like also connect to the episode that's coming. Joni had mentioned, a few other people had mentioned, we talked about this several weeks ago, as far as on the website, how they're organized. So in previous seasons, every episode I made its own folder that said, episode 14, here's all the docs for episode 14. And we got a lot of complaints about that because later into the season, somebody's like, oh, what did McGinnis say in his report? And they don't know which episode it was in, so they're going through all those folders. So in this episode, instead, I just tried to title the episode or the documents so they're easy to find. Google Docs organizes them alphabetically, and they're all just there, so you can scroll through. So I know some people like that, some people don't like that, but not everybody's going to be happy. For me, that's the easier way. To me, it works well for me when I'm looking for something. And so much so that half the time, if I'm looking for a document, instead of going to my files, I'll just go to the website because I know all the pertinent documents are there and they're alphabetical and I can quickly find them.
Okay, cool. Well, let's talk about the hearsay question for a second. I know, you're not an attorney. You're always careful to say that. And there are a lot of different laws or exceptions around hearsay. But Barry says, why is the information from a jailhouse snitch not considered hearsay? They have no knowledge of the crime beyond what they've, quote, heard.
So I think I have a pretty good understanding of hearsay as a non-attorney, and I did a little more research when I saw this question too.
Nice.
And the thing about hearsay is you can't testify to literally what you heard someone say. But if you are one of the exceptions, if you're directly involved in a conversation, so like if I'm having a conversation with Jack or with Zach, I can testify to in my conversation with Zach said XYZ. Usually that, but I mean, there's gray areas. There'll still be some objections. We see in other parts of for example, there's several people testified we haven't got to in detail yet, or it's coming up soon. When supposedly Shaddis Wells went by the Miles house and like delivered the threat. When they're testifying, every time they start to say he shouted out this, the defense attorney says objection, it's hearsay, and the judge sustains it. So I don't quite know what the difference is there. But when I was reading about, like, I literally Googled, like, why is jailhouse snitch testimony not hearsay? And it has to do if they're directly involved in the conversation as to whether or not they're able to testify to it. So it's a gray area. And I think sometimes people will object to it and it'll get sustained, sometimes overruled. But it doesn't seem to be the case so much with jailhouse snitches because we see it all the time.
I also feel like I could be totally wrong about this, but somewhere in my brain is telling me that if it's confessional, almost like the dying declaration thing of like, oh,
Yeah.
he whispered this person's name, like we see with, with DeMario. So I feel like that's part of it too. Like even if you overhear someone confessing, like somehow they try to, because of course it's to their advantage to try to find whatever reason or excuse or let you can if someone's saying they did it. So you're going to work really hard to try to get that in, I would imagine.
Yeah, and like I know there is an exception for dying declarations. I think that's why it's kind of a go-to sometimes because the witness is not available, or the person who said it is not available to talk about it because they're dead. So those dying declarations are allowed to come in sometimes. But again, it's confusing to me. Like I said, I found several articles about it, felt like I had a grip on it, but then you think about circumstances like that, like the dying declaration is an exception. It's allowed in because they're dying, but also they were talking directly to someone. So why wouldn't that be allowed in anyway if the jailhouse snitch testimony is allowed in? So I don't have a great answer for that. I would say do some of your own research. When I did it, it just seemed like a very gray area, but while at the same time, it seems like jailhouse snitch testimony is just always allowed.
Yeah. I feel like Colin Miller has a blog specifically about this. I would say
Probably.
Google Colin Miller hearsay, and he'll give you like 5 pages of explanation of how and when.
And if he doesn't, then ask Bob Mata. I bet.
Yeah, Bob and Allie also definitely know their way around some hearsay law for sure. Okay, cool. So going back to the kites, Lynn says, how many hands actually touch kites in a jail? Has fingerprint analysis been performed on these in other trials that you're aware of? Did the prosecution report all the prints they couldn't identify? Were there any guard prints, or did they pick these up with gloves on? Really? When was Jody made aware that their defense attorney had changed? So that's a kind of a separate piece.
Yeah. So with the kites, some of them were there were a bunch, and there were several that were sent to the lab that were unusable because there was too many prints on them. It all depends. Like one, for example, I know is actually an officer that I know personally. I'm friends with him, who's not a Benton Harbor cop, but he was a Berrien County cop at the time. was literally like delivering somebody to the jail and found this kite laying around. And so he put gloves on, picked it up, turned it in. So there's situations like that where it's just found and it didn't pass through a lot of hands. Other situations it did pass through several hands and there were fingerprints on them. But I think that the jail guards are like, these are things that get used in trials a lot. So I think they're probably pretty careful when they find them. You know, they would, even though most people don't think of paper as being a place to put fingerprints, the jail guards, I think, know pretty well that that's the case. What was the second part of that question?
So if you say that's pretty common, that was part of Lynn's question, was like this feeling like new information, but like maybe that's something that happens in other trials. Like that's, someone's able to say, and this person wrote this because we did fingerprint analysis, if it had come into anything you'd ever heard of before.
Yeah. I've seen it in other cases where it's come up.
And then also, sorry.
That's what I was going to say. The last part was, when was Jody made aware of their defense attorney being changed?
Oh, right. Yeah, that's right. So from what Jody's told me, it was 10 days before the trial was scheduled. Their attorney, Renfro, I think was the last name, was taken off the case, and then Ernie White was put on the case. So it was 10 days before the scheduled trial date, but then I believe they filed like a 30-day continuance to get a little time. So I think then it got delayed like 30 days before the actual trial started. So I think from what Jody has told me, it was like the new attorney was on the case 40 days before it started, but also that the attorney never once came to the jail and talked to Jody. I think I mentioned this last week, but Jody said that, on several occasions witnesses would come up and their attorney was turning to them and saying like, who's this person? Who is that? Trying to figure out who was on the stand. So it doesn't seem like there was much trial prep at all.
And do you know, was there a reason given? And is that something that's really common? Is that you just you're at the mercy of like, well, we assigned this attorney, that's not happening anymore, you're starting fresh with this other new person?
I think Jody had said something. I think that Renfro's like on their own stepped away from the case. I don't know what the reason was for it. But they stepped away. I think they said something along the lines of, that they felt like it was a frame job and they just didn't want to be a part of it. I don't know, but that doesn't really make much sense to me, because then you seem like it'd be more motivated to be part of the defense. I'm not sure, but I don't think it was like the court said, we're playing a switcheroo. I think that Renfro stepped down from the case for whatever reason. And so then they reappointed White, the new attorney.
Okay, gotcha. Because I know, Anna had a question about that also. Like, what are your rights as a defendant if something like that happens? Or, obviously, like she even said, like, could you even just ask for a mistrial then when something like that happens? But it sounds like, yes, as long as nobody because you're still at the mercy of that attorney that you've been assigned to then make that motion for you. But if you can make a motion for continuance so that they're showing this perceived best effort, like, well, I am new, let's, give me a little more time to get to know the case, then that would probably be enough to just keep that person, and there wouldn't be like a mistrial scenario or anything like that, right?
Right. The trial hadn't even started yet, and they asked for I think it was 30 days before the trial started, but there just was no prep. And again, I don't think that is. You've heard me say I thought that White did a terrible job of cross-examining these witnesses in a lot of cases. I'm not saying that I think this person is a bad attorney. I think it has just a lot more to do with the complete case overload, not enough time.
Sure.
And honestly, they probably thought Jody was guilty. They clearly didn't research the case very well. And, they look at, if they're not looking deeply into the case file and cross-checking all this stuff, then they're like, well, the woman dying said that it was JoJo. What I mean?
I hear what you're saying. And I'm not saying that I believe this is a bad attorney either. Agreed. But at the end of the day, this is a person pleading not guilty for murder. This is not like, I'm sure they did steal that stereo. Like, I'm just going to go ahead and assume. I mean, this is the idea of showing up to Sprouted Sunshine's point in the chat, guilty or innocent, how terrifying to have never met your attorney before you go to trial. Like, the idea that you have pled not guilty to murder and you're like, hello, hi, nice to meet you. I see you're my new attorney. Let's sit down. And the judge is here.
But the other thing,
a nightmare.
The other thing is, we are again looking at this in complete hindsight, and I'm not saying this is the case either, but we got to remember Jody was young at this point. Do we know what Jody's like well-being was of the law, like knowing anything of the law? Like, they could have been very ignorant and not known that it's not even like common for them to not come talk to them.
No, I mean, they had been to prison before,
Okay.
so they've been through this case. I mean, I don't think they knew all of the ins and outs of the laws. I know they were frustrated.
I look at it as a 20, 21-year-old going, I don't know. They didn't come talk to me, but maybe they don't talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's a good. I don't know if Jody was like upset about that at the time. Seems like they were now, but maybe that's hindsight. But like Janet was saying, it doesn't change the fact that like that's a terrible position to be in.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's just like I said, I don't want to shit on this attorney because they were kind of behind the 8 ball on it, and they had somebody researched what it was 90% of the cases in Berrien County they were defending. But at the same time, like everybody is supposed to be entitled to a good defense. Jody just didn't get one.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's part of the system, right? I mean, I think that's also what you're saying is like this is all part of the broken system. And so it doesn't fall on the defense attorneys. That's like, oh, it's all on your shoulders. Like, not at all.
Right.
Okay. We also have a couple of questions from previous episodes. Folks are catching up, or maybe something sparks for them when they listen to the latest episode. Leslie says, I have a question about the gunshot residue from the episode. Before, couldn't it have been on their jacket from the robbery? They confessed to firing a shot at the robbery.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the point I was trying to make in the episode was I think it probably is GSR. Right. And the reason being because Jody told us they shot a gun 2 days before this. So that's probably what it was. Yeah, I think that there's a good chance that's what happened. And I believe one of the witnesses to the robbery said that the person that came out of the bushes was wearing a blue and yellow coat or something like that. So I think that's probably accurate.
Okay. And then Jennifer, to piggyback on that, says, question about that. How and when was the blood on the jacket tested? I think if they sent it to a lab for blood/DNA testing, the lab would do the GSR collection as well.
I don't remember the detail. I know that was the first thing they tested. I don't know if they just had a crime scene tech swab it and sent a swab, or if they sent the whole. I think they just swabbed it and then sent the swab to the lab, which that's normal procedure if you have like McGee, right? The crime scene tech, that's part of their job is to do things like that, swab for and then send evidence off to the lab. So I don't think they ever actually sent the jacket anywhere.
Gotcha. That's all we have that rolled in on the Facebook page. I'm just looking to see if there are additional questions that we could have covered. Well, Brian asked, can Renfro give any of his notes or research to White, or does White have to start from scratch? I would imagine that the attorney can say, here are my notes.
Yeah, I think some of that stuff was turned over, but that's why we have like this kind of big gap in the documents and evidence and stuff like that, because we thought maybe Renfro would have them, and it seems like Renfro would give them to White. I believe White's passed away since then, if I remember correctly, or maybe it was Renfro had passed away. But yeah, I don't know what exactly was passed between the two, and I don't know how much research Renfro did on the thing. I mean, because to me, as we're looking into this case, like as I mentioned, like every single thing we pull, every string we pull has bullshit on the end of it, all of it. Like there's not been one. The only element of this case that was presented at trial that was actually factually accurate is the fact that Jody wrote those kites. Everything else, all of it, and just wait till. I'm trying to wrap my brain around this part I was worried about. This Sunday, especially wait till next Sunday, you're going to hear just what you're going to learn very clearly in next week's episode that Jody's attorney had no idea what was in that police file. No idea. And I want to get any further into it than that. But I actually thought I gaslit myself last night.
Oh, no.
Yeah, like I was reading through, so I was trying to double check and cross-reference something for this week's episode, and I read some testimony. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not what they said. Let me look at the other person involved in that. And I looked at their testimony, and it matched the first one. I'm like, that's not what they said. And then I looked at the other person, and it matched. Everybody just told this perfect, cohesive story, and I'm like, if I lost my mind, I could have swore everybody said the exact opposite before. And I was like, well, before. So then I go back to the police files and I'm like, oh, I'm not crazy. They did. They did say the exact opposite all the way through the police file every time they were interviewed in the police file. And they got on trial and told a complete opposite story, and White didn't catch any of it.
Oof,
So that
that's
tells me
wild.
like he was not prepared for that trial. I mean, the cross-examination of those people should have been so easy. Like, oh, so you say this happened? Well, right here, you said the opposite. Why is that? Over and over again. But instead, the jury just heard, like, everything to the jury just felt like this. Like I mentioned this episode, Terrence Hunter was like the glue that held everything together. He didn't say anything of substance. He didn't say anything that actually indicated, unless somebody actually believes that Jody went in there and just confessed to a stranger because he's great at bird law or whatever. But what he did was bind everything together. You know, like Sonia Lucas. That story seems odd. And here's this guy that says, well, Jody told me they were worried about this woman that saw them while they were committing the murder. You know, and then you hear the story from Canvas about Jody's driving around stalking DeMario before the crime scene. And then here's this other seemingly independent witness that says, well, Jody told me they were driving around stalking before the murder. You know what I mean? So like Terrence Hunter was just kind of like a binder for the whole story to fit together. But you know, every little thing, it just seemed this has not been a difficult case to investigate. In fact, it's been one of the most easiest cases that I've ever investigated as far as finding out who didn't do it. It's just like one thing after another. It's like, oh, here's the big, you know, the gunshot residue, for example. You know, I read the newspaper articles from back then, and it's like there was gunshot residue found on Joseph Hill's coat. Like, oh, well, I mean, that sounds pretty damning. And then you read about it, and it's like, wait, what? But the killer was wearing a black coat, not a Michigan starter jacket. Jody had shot a gun a couple days before, and that coat's not connected to that coat. And the GSR testing was done, you know, over the phone by the same crooked cop that was framing Jody for the murder all along. Anyway, with all that being said, I think that we got a pretty good grip on this episode. I think I was able to keep my brain locked into episode 11. Make sure you tune in on Sunday for episode 12. And again, I think that this is probably the most important episode we've had so far as actually understanding, learning what actually happened to DeMario Lowe's. I think we're going to get a real good picture of that on Sunday. Make sure you tune in. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Stop on record.
There was a moment early on that I got giggling because Bob was talking so fast.
He was talking very fast.
He was talking so fast, and I couldn't.
Because my mind is on fire. My mind is moving so quickly.
People are going to be like, did I put this on 1.25 or 1.5?
Yeah.
No? What
slow
changed?
me way down when you guys talk.
Yeah.
I got giggling because I was just like, oh no, I got to talk in a minute, and I don't want to be laughing.
Flex are all making me thirsty. I don't feel, somebody said I'm feeling like I didn't, but it was right when the episode started. And maybe it's because I had gotten up and came back.
I
and
think
sat
that's probably
down.
it. Yeah.
I got ready to start, and all of a sudden my brain was like, "Ooh, okay."
No,
like,
you snapped back in.
Trouble.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to end this thing because I want to get that last effect put in that episode before I go inside and make myself mad for an hour and a half.
I
That's
might
my
get to
plan.
see my
good.
kids before they go to bed.
Perfect.
Nice.
All right, we're going to end this live stream. Patrons, YouTube people, all of you guys, we love you, and we'll talk to you next week.
Ooh.
Bye, guys.
Creepy. Bye, guys.
Bye.